Scale your business without the burnout. This is the Thriving Business Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to the Thriving Business Podcast. I'm here again today with my wonderful co-host, Sam Morris in Melbourne. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Kate.
So we're up to episode 7 of season 2 of the Thriving Business Podcast. We are working our way through the roadmap to business success, which is based on our Thriving Business Wheel. We have covered off quadrant 1, which was all about revenue generation, and now we're in quadrant 2, which is all about profitability. So keeping the money you earn and making it work for you. The last episode we did, which was always one of my favorites, was on profit first and money mastery. So if you haven't listened to that one, highly recommend you go and have a listen, because Sam walked us through, in layman's terms, the basic mechanisms for having oversight and control of money in your business.
Yes.
Yeah. And now we are moving on to a very important topic, which is all about your pricing strategy.
Yes. And I think particularly for service-based business owners, this is a big struggle. They don't know how to price their services.
Yeah. And I can relate to that, because it's something that I've, struggled with over the years, but lots of learnings along the way. And I find this topic really interesting because it's a balance between psychology, confidence, mindset, and actual practical, what will the market pay, what are you worth, or, charging what you need to charge to have a profitable business, and to actually be getting paid the value that you give to people. So lots to unpack in this conversation.
Oh, yes, a lot.
Another big bull to grab by the horns, as Sam said.
That poor bull.
Getting pulled a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I came across some interesting quotes when I was, doing my little research for this episode, as we do. So let me start with one of them, because I thought it was interesting. If you're the cheapest in the room, you're not seen as the best, you're seen as the most desperate.
Yes, agree with that one.
So a lot of people, especially first-time business owners, think that by pricing themselves lower than the average, competitor in the market, that people are going to come to them. It's simply not true.
Yeah.
And
I think we've all heard the saying that entering a price war is a fight to the bottom.
Correct. A race to the bottom. Yeah.
That's the word, yes.
Yeah. So we don't want to get into any of those races, because we are, rather than competing on price, we want to be charging our value, and it's our job to articulate and show and demonstrate what that value is, so that people feel confident in paying for that value.
Yes. And here's where, as you mentioned, Kate, the psychology takes its first step up to the plate, because our own perceived value of a service is quite often sitting well under the market's perception of a service.
Okay. Tell us a bit more about that.
Oh, I thought you were just going to agree with me straight out of the gate.
No, I'm curious. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that, and this is particularly true for women. It is well documented, well studied, that women often undervalue themselves. And because women are so prevalent in service-based industry, that women are going to say, oh, based on value, well, based on my value, I don't value myself very highly, therefore I can't price myself very highly.
Yes, very true. And this is where confidence mindset comes into it so much. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have to shift this thought process away from what do I perceive my value as, to a reflection of what do my customers perceive the value of the service as?
Yes. And are we articulating that value? Are we showing that value clearly enough, which is the marketing challenges we talked about in the revenue generation? Yeah. So yes, we have noticed that, Sam, because you and I worked only with women for about 3 years. And while there are some incredibly confident women out there, you're right, the majority do struggle with charging what they're worth. And especially I find women who are very established in their careers and they're stepping out of a career where they've got a really good reputation, they're really well known, stepping maybe into the consulting space, don't struggle as much because they've got that sort of confidence behind them. But I find in a lot of women where they feel like they're pivoting slightly and they're doing something new, suddenly they get imposter syndrome and their confidence goes down. I mean, I've got a lady that I know a lady who came from 25 years in high level management in corporate government, and now has branched out on her own and feels like she can't pivot into this sort of change management space because she doesn't have the experience as a consultant. And it's like, but what about all the times you manage change within the organization? And her pricing she was charging was not reflecting the value and the experience that she was bringing. So yeah, it's a problem that a lot of women, they undervalue their skills, experience, and thinking that if they're going into business because it's new, that they have to then prove themselves all over again, which is not the case.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Whereas this is another really good quote that I came across. If you don't value your time, neither will others. Stop giving away your time and talents. Value what you know and start charging for it. Yeah, so this whole concept of value is both an internal and external thing, right? So
Yes.
mm,
Yes, and I think, anyone that's listened to the other episodes in this series in season 2, I've said quite a few times that I've taken for granted things that come so easily to me.
mhm,
And I know that this is a trap in pricing because if you are working in your zone of genius and it comes very easily and naturally to you and it's something you love doing and you want to do, pricing that service becomes a very, very big challenge.
that's right.
What you have to remember is that the people that come to you for that service, it's not something that comes naturally to them. It is something that they find difficult.
That's right.
This is where you have to move the value off of yourself and onto the customer.
That's right.
They value it, not how you value it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so charge what you're worth, not what you think people will pay.
Yes,
Yeah, and there's another great quote here. The moment you make a mistake in pricing, you're eating either into your reputation or your profits.
correct.
Yeah. So pricing is a way that you can really damage your reputation. If you are the cheapest in the market, there is a perception that you can't be that good.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. And, everybody is looking for the best service or best product that they can possibly afford because it is not, it is also about uh, prestige and association for the customers and the clients. They may be reaching a little deeper into their pockets to work with a particular brand or a particular person or own a particular product because of what they think it says about them.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Mm.
And they're willing to pay the extra because they perceive value. Value is a lot about perception.
It is, yes.
I can't tell you the number of clients I've had come to me and they've paid 20,000, 30,000 on, on a big name in the coaching industry and then just been very disappointed with the outcome they've got. But they did pull out their wallet and pay that extraordinary amount of money for this group coaching program. And because they perceived massive value in that. So our job as business owners is to help customers see the value of what we provide. And a lot of that's in what we talk through in the revenue generation quadrant around social proof and credibility, building that up. In anytime you're speaking about what you do, you're talking about the results and the transformation you get rather than, than what you do. People don't care what you do until they understand why you do it and the place you can get them to, the end destination.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've had these calls as well, Kate, like back when I was coaching and I was doing discovery calls, I think that I probably had just as many people say to me, that's too expensive, as the people that said to me, oh, is that all?
Mm, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
very, very interesting. And if you only listen to that person that comes along and says you're too expensive, you are going to undervalue what you do,
Yeah.
because this is all a matter of finding a match between what you do and how you're positioned and what you're offering and the price with the right people.
Correct. Yeah. The right
And
people will see the value.
yes, yeah. And I think it is very much about, sometimes hanging in there. It can take a little bit longer to start generating those sales and build up momentum so that there's regular sales coming in. But
Yeah.
be wary of the price drop.
Yes, it is the natural tendency for, you're right. I've experienced it myself in the past, but also a lot of clients, if they're not getting any traction, they think, oh, I need to drop the price. And that's often not what you need to do. Yeah, and unfortunately, what I've found is a lot of people pick up on the subliminal messaging with pricing, right? If you stand in your confidence with, I'm worth, one session with me is worth $2,000. If that's what you truly believe, because you might see if speaking of business coaching, for example, you might see a hole in the business that's costing them $2,000 a month, and you fix that, and your fee is already returned straight away. So sometimes if you feel really confident about what you're worth, the other person picks up on it, and they also feel the non-attachment. If you sort of say, oh well, if they say, oh, I can't really afford that at the moment. Okay, well, come back when you're ready, and when you are able to afford it, I'll be able to help you then. And I find that, yeah, as we've talked about this before as well, that non-attachment and standing in your worth and not compromising and saying, no, that's the pricing. So come back when you're ready then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very, I find pricing very closely linked to your own confidence, and that builds with experience and time.
Yes, it does.
And I've noticed that myself, my pricing strategy has increased as my confidence has increased.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not something you can change overnight, but
So I understand pricing for your value, pricing for your worth. However, to the person that is listening right now, Kate, who doesn't understand their worth and their value, maybe they're new, and like you say, maybe they are moving into something that is quite different for them. They're not understanding the impact they can make, or or exactly what it is, how far they can take people. How do you tell people like that to quantify their value and their worth? What steps do you give them? Like, what do you tell them to think about? What actions do they need to take to try and get an understanding of value and worth?
well, a lot of the time, um, I find people in business do what they do in the corporate world. People new to business, I should say, they think of, well, what's my hourly rate? And they,
Mhm.
they say, oh, well, I think I can charge 200 an hour, whatever it is. But then, as you and I know, Sam, charging an hourly rate is a fast track to burnout. And, yeah, if you were actually able to, we've just come off the back of the profit first conversation about that $200 an hour gets split into, $50 that goes into your tax account, another 30 goes into that, and pretty much the actual money that's left over from that 200 an hour that you actually get to pay yourself is minimal, so
Mm.
you've got to get out of that charging time for money. Charging money for time. So, sorry, to actually charging for the value of the service that you provide. So to do that, the steps I typically walk through with a client are, what is it costing the client at the moment to have that problem? So
Mm.
say, I'm trying to think of a good example.
Well, we spoke about the business diet last week. Why don't we use someone who is offering health and wellness services, for example?
Yeah. Yeah. So say you've got someone who's got a chronic condition and they're having to, they've got doctor's appointments, or they've got, a whole bunch of medical bills that they're spending.
Expensive food habits.
Yeah.
There are costs.
Yeah. And
Buying new clothes because they keep putting on weight.
yeah.
Gym memberships they don't use.
Yeah. So imagine you come along and you have a service that actually gets to the root cause of this chronic health condition, and the person wants to change this problem so badly that, if you can help them see that, and if you've got enough social proof to show that, work with me and I'll get you to this point where you won't need the gym memberships, you won't need the doctor's bills, because we'll get to the root cause of the problem and we'll solve it. If the person can see that they're going to get that result, if they feel confident that you can deliver that result, and they can make an emotional connection to that, feeling healthy again, then what is that worth to them? If that saves them 3 months of medical bills, then, maybe that's a $3,000 program. So, and maybe you only need to invest 5 hours to deliver that outcome. But the point is, people are paying for the result you deliver, not the time you invest. And that's the big shift you've got to make in business, is that people are paying you for the result you can get them. And ideally, the longer we are in business, the less time it takes us to get that result for someone. But that doesn't mean you charge less. It's because the value of that outcome is still the same, if you know what I mean.
Yes, and in actual fact, it works in the opposite way. Is that the better you get, the more, and the results are evident, the more you will charge and the quicker you will deliver.
That's
And,
right.
and we have all seen that. We've all followed people whose prices go up and results improve. And, it goes from a 6-month timeline to a 3-month timeline. And this is how people become profitable. But it
Yes.
isn't about how much time it took the person to get you that result. It is about the fact that you are achieving that result.
That's right. Yeah, so that's sort of the process you've got to work through, is how much is this problem costing your customers? How much will they pay to solve that problem? And there is a bit of market testing you need to do, that some problems people just won't pay a lot of money to solve, and that's where the whole market validation process comes into play. And
Yes.
but I think definitely the key is moving away from trading it's trading your time for money. That's the biggest mindset shift you need to make in business.
Yeah. So what about the people who do a little bit of market research, particularly in industries that might be quite crowded, and think that they have to use industry standards as a benchmark and price at that point?
Yeah, well, I know we always use the golden rule, figure out the average competitor pricing and sit 10% above, something like that.
Yes.
It's tricky. It's not always the right strategy, but in many cases, you don't want to be the cheapest, as we've already talked about, because people will say, "Oh, well, she can't be very good at what she does," or "He mustn't be very good at what he does." There is a point where some people just, flat out, "Oh, that's too expensive," and they don't value, they don't see the value. But again, it really is our job in marketing and sales to demonstrate the value and build that credibility and trust. But what's your hesitation, Sam, about sitting 10% above the competitors' average rate that competitors charge?
My only problem with that is that's making the assumption that you are delivering value that is average plus 10%.
Yeah, yeah.
And what if that average is actually really poor? What if the value at that average point is really not good?
Yeah,
Because to me, that's like, because your pricing is sending a signal out to people that
that's
this is
right.
what you're worth. So if the industry is flooded with cheap people and you pick the industry average,
Yeah.
then it's still not communicating great value.
Yeah, it's context dependent for sure. I guess that what
Yeah,
the main message with that is always sit above the average. Don't be the average, but
yeah.
also don't be the cheapest. But you're right. So you're suggesting that in some cases you can charge a lot more than the average market rate because you're um,
If
yeah, yeah,
if you
yeah,
have the right offer and if you have you know, the experience or the credentials to back it up. And, there's a few ifs that go with that. But yes, I think there are red flags that people need to be aware of if they're just doing this pricing on their own and they're just like, I'll just pop myself in the middle of the market.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's your advice, Sam, in that situation to someone who's struggling to figure out their pricing?
Well, get some really good advice and help from people
Yep.
so that you can price properly. And I think that, could you imagine a world we lived in where it was every business owner's endeavor to be striving towards being the best and achieving premium pricing?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and before anyone has a heart attack about, oh, well, that's just going to get so expensive for everyone. No, it's not, because the cost of not having your problems solved and not having things fixed
Yeah,
is usually much greater than what you pay to get it fixed.
that's right. Yeah, and that's really the message you need to get across. So, this morning I was talking to a man who does really high quality home filtration systems for water, whole house systems, and the reason he got onto this is because he had quite severe cancer for many years, and water was one of the things, drinking pure water was one of the things that helped him heal. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and there's he said so many people don't realize just the quality of the water you're putting into your body has such a big impact on your overall health. And so when and he really goes and is targeting that sector, people with chronic health conditions, and because they can really see the value of doing that as a starting point. So the people will pay, whatever price that has on it to get the outcome of healing faster. Or, so it's up to us to help people see the emotional link and between where they are now and where they could be if they invest in the product or service that we're offering,
Yeah.
which goes back to everything we talked about in quadrant one in the first
Yes.
5 episodes. Yeah.
So let's talk about discounting.
Oh,
The
okay.
go-to button that people press when they get scared when things aren't moving, the sales aren't happening.
Hmm.
Discounting. Let's talk about why it's a bad idea.
Yeah, it can work for short periods of time, if there's if you really do want to get some revenue through the door and you have a product or service that people know is normally this price and you reduce it for a short time, it can be a good way to get fast cash flow. But as a general rule, discounting, yeah, just devalues what you do and is not a good idea. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, I think there are some really, business owner beware situations where discounting can really adversely affect your business long term. For
Mhm.
starters, you don't want to be the discount business. You don't
No,
want to train your customers to always wait for the next
that's
sale.
right. That's right. It can be a really rare one-off thing in which it works because people are, oh,
Yeah.
okay, but then you don't do it again for a while. You don't want
Yes.
people to, like, we all know that Boxing Day sales, and we all know when the typical sales cycles are, so we wait until then. You don't want to be in that position.
No, I think that if everybody could understand that it is much better for your business to deconstruct your offer and to sell off a portion at a different price point, at a lower price point, because they're only getting part of your bigger offer, is
Yeah.
a much better option than discounting the offer as it stands.
Yeah, and maybe you and I can be very transparent here, Sam, and talk about the struggles we had in pricing the workshop that we have at the end of each quadrant. And
Yes.
because of all the stuff happening in the world at the moment, fuel's high, the petrol prices are high, the groceries are going up, everything's expensive, and we're sort of in a fearful state globally. It was, we fell into the trap of thinking cheaper might be better. Well, I did, speaking personally. You were the one that actually said, my tendency was to, you know, was to drop the price given the situation. However, you correctly pointed out that the value we're offering here, they've got access to two of us with 30 years business experience between us. And what's that worth to someone? So in the end, we've landed on $120 for a ticket to come to our workshop, but you get live coaching specifically on your business. And we're limiting it to 10 people because we want to be able to make sure the people on the call get the right attention. You can also sign up for the replay and get that too. But it's the question, what is that worth to someone? If they spend $120, what is that worth to them in their business? They could crack their marketing code. They could figure out their own pricing strategy. They could figure out how to, productize their services. There's so much value they could potentially get that gives them the ability to generate revenue. So yeah, I guess that's speaking to your point about don't discount. You've always got to look at what's the value of this to the customer.
Yes, yes. And I love this. I'm going to pick out this word that you have just used, Kate, and that is potential. We are all within the service industry. I think we are all selling potential, aren't we? Potential to achieve something.
Yep.
We often talk about, sell a transformation in your marketing, but we're selling the potential of a transformation.
That's right.
And so I think people need to recognize the potential for their own business. And when they can recognize the potential, then that's when they will part with the money to have the chance to achieve that potential.
Yeah, they can recognize the potential and they trust that you will deliver that potential for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think look, we've had many discussions over the years with different products that we've, like different offerings that we've created and sold. And, I think the price conversations that we've had previously over the years, they're always fraught with danger about trying to anticipate what the value is going to be. And that's why I think pricing strategy is a very, very difficult one to nail straight away.
Yeah.
I think people have to accept that it can be a bit of a testing ground.
Yeah. And it is, we're testing all the time with pricing. And I've got a client at the moment, he's a residential designer, and he's previously been doing what the market does, his competitors do, which is charge a fee for the design portion. So they typically charge around $5,000 to draw up some plans for a home renovation. But he came across a competitor that's doing 3.5% of the whole total build price. So suddenly it goes from a $5,000 job to a 20, 30K job to do that design work simply through a pricing structure change.
Yeah.
And he suddenly goes from trying to juggle 10 clients a month to juggling 2 a month, but getting paid double for less work. So sometimes that's simple. And he's in the process now of testing that pricing change. And he's so busy because he's so cheap, charging just $5,000 for, design plans. He's got a lot of customers, but he's burning out. He's working 12 hours a day or more, working weekends. It's not sustainable. And then when we had this conversation, he said, I just saw my mate down the road, my competitor is doing this. And we're like, well, let's test it out. And so he's tested it out. And I suspect it's not going to be a problem. Because again, it's perception. It's how you present something. In this case, he's saying, oh, it's $5,000 for me to do the drawings for you. Or I only charge 3.5% of the total build price, which seems like a really small percentage, but it's a really big number, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And people don't balk if they're spending, $700,000 on a home upgrade. or more, then suddenly 3.5% seems like, yeah, sure, that doesn't seem
Yeah.
unreasonable.
Well, look, the
Um,
real estate industry has been using that methodology for however many years, forever.
Exactly, that's right. And so that's another part why people don't bat an eyelid, because that's typical for what real estate agents do. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
suddenly and he said, you know what, I'm so busy at the moment, I don't actually care if he's put out quotes for 2 or 3 people with this new pricing structure. And he said, I don't care if they say yes or no, because I'm so busy, I can't take them on at the moment anyway. And I said, that is the perfect time to test, because
It
all
is.
you need, there's no attachment, there's no, if they say yes, it's a bonus and you can book them in for 2 months' time when your workload drops off. But that is the best time when you don't need the work to test your pricing strategy. So I'm so excited for him to see if, and I have no doubt it'll work because his competitor's doing it fine. And
Yeah.
yeah, but we do, that has sort of kicked off a process of him now having to elevate all his branding and marketing, because his competitor does look more shiny and polished online. So he's having to elevate, and he's getting new headshots done. And, so it's a whole, now he's really leveling up and elevating to that next pricing structure. But sometimes simple things like that can make a huge difference in, just pricing, using a different pricing structure, massive difference in your bottom line.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a great example of where just
Yeah.
thinking outside the box. And then again, elevating your whole approach and look and style and online visibility to match this new level that you want to play at. So I
Yeah.
think we sometimes do, when it comes to pricing, think too small. A lot of it is our own self-confidence, or what's the quote? The only limits are the ones in our mind. Like,
Correct.
and we had the same conversation, Sam, in trying to price for our upcoming Bali retreat.
Yes, yes, we did. And
Another example of where I was saying, well, maybe we should put it a bit lower. And you're like, but they're getting 2 days of private business coaching. What's that worth? And
yeah, exactly, Kate. Because I was like, well, if you paid for a VIP day, how much would that cost? And, plus you've got your accommodation and your food
a
and,
beautiful villa, and it's the experience itself is wonderful. Yeah. And plus
yes,
you're getting all this, you're getting a container to do this transformation in your business. And
yes.
that could potentially mean 50,000 a year or more in revenue. So what's $5,000 on a retreat? 4.5 if you get the early bird, just saying.
Yeah. Exactly. Get yourself a bit of a discount.
Yeah.
And
So,
we've also added into that, 2 offers for the retreat too, because there is the bonus VIP day if people
yep.
want to add on to that, and stay an extra day and
Yeah.
get highly focused attention. But yeah, all this is crafted not inside a vacuum, but it has to be very open and allow all of these external things to influence the way you pull all of this together, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just about sticking a price on things.
Yeah, and we've covered the topic of productization in a previous
Yeah.
episode, which is where you offer different pricing options depending on people's budgets or where they're
Yes.
at, or yeah, and in our case, we've got the early bird discount, because time sensitive discounts do actually work to get people to make a decision. So, we've offered it to the first 5 people that sign up, they get a $500 discount. So
Yeah.
that just means that those that are keen and they sign up, they'll save themselves $500. And that genuine time sensitivity does work as a motivation for people to make a decision.
Yes.
And then, yeah, like you say, we've got different options. You can do the basic retreat, or you get the VIP day where they get access to private coaching. So the weekend will be group coaching, but then they get access to one-on-one coaching. So having different tiers for what people want, and yeah, that's also a really good pricing strategy. And
Yeah.
but yeah, again, when we looked at what the value of this retreat is actually, it's at least sort of a 30 grand value minimum, and then we're charging 5. So again, it's what's the value to the customer? It's not what will the market pay? Or people will pay for value they perceive, right? So,
Correct.
yeah. And there was another quote someone wrote here. Increasing your prices is the fastest way to increase your profits. Yes, absolutely, without working harder.
Yeah.
Like this, yeah, like the drafty example is a great example of that. Just change your pricing structure.
Yes.
The other one was um, price is what you pay, value is what you get. Um, yeah, and so people have to see the value, but as we've said, value is a perception.
Yes. Yes, it is. And I think I had a train of thought before. What was it about pricing? It'll come back to me.
I hope so.
What a time for it to escape.
Yeah, yeah, because we're coming to the end, but I hope that we've covered off on most of the, yeah, we've talked about the hourly rate trap. Don't do that. It's
And
the
don't do.
fastest way to burn out and not get anywhere in business. Equal exchange. Money is simply an exchange of value. If your value is high, your price should reflect that without apology.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I think there's a very, very good exercise people can do that will either red flag or green flag your pricing, the ideas you have about pricing in your head. And this is a good one. So if you think about what the next 12 months in business looks like for you and how much money you want to make, but there is often a disconnect here. People say, oh, it'd be great if in my first year I can just get to six figures. Okay. Pick up your product and the price you think you're going to sell it for. And by product, I mean product or service.
Mm-hmm,
And then multiply that by how many times you're going to have to deliver it to
mm-hmm.
achieve that six-figure business.
Yep.
Because that'll straight away tell you whether this is all a possibility or you're dreaming.
That's right. That's a very basic calculation every new business needs to do. It's like, okay, I
Yeah.
want to make this much money. Okay, well, based on my, we probably should have mentioned this at the start. It's quite important. We'll have to tell everyone to listen all the way to the end. But
Yeah.
yeah, what's your pricing strategy? What's your revenue goal? And exactly how much do I need to sell or how many times do I need to deliver that service to make that a reality? And if it means that you're having to work 18-hour days, it's not the right pricing strategy, or you're not going to make that much money. So that's
Yeah.
a really good point. Reverse engineer, figure it out, and figure out how many hours you are willing to work and what you are willing to charge in order to make the money you need. And for some people, it's a it's not a what am I trying to say? It's a non-negotiable. Some people have a revenue target they need to make to pay their bills, to cover their
Mhm.
costs, and therefore, yeah, you need to price in a way that you can reach that target. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And please do not do that equation by simply dividing by 52 weeks in a year or whatever, or thinking, oh yeah, 38 hours a week. No, because you cannot, like, if you're delivering 38 hours a week, you are not working 38 hours a week.
yeah,
As a business owner, there's other stuff you've got to do. So
that's
you've got to think realistically, I can actually spend 20 hours delivering because I'm going to need 3 hours for marketing and 2 hours for this. And
exactly
I
right.
cannot, as a human being, work 52 weeks a year, 38 hours a week, 40 hours a
That's
week,
right.
60 hours a week. You've got to, be realistic about this. If you have kids, you're going to have time off because they'll get sick.
That's
And
right.
you've got to block out some time for yourself to have a break.
That's a really good point. A lot of people stepping out of corporate think, okay, well, this is what I'm going to charge, and I'm going to be working 35 hours a week. And you're like, okay, so where in that week are you going to be doing your marketing, your networking, your product development, and you've got your family, and yeah, it's just not realistic. And a bit like the, when we were talking about profit first, and you've got the different buckets. It's the same with your time in
Mhm.
business. You don't have 100% of time to dedicate to revenue generation. You've got to be doing all these other, you've got to be managing your business. You've got to be, doing all the business development and the marketing and the sales and all that stuff. So yeah,
Yes.
you can see why it's challenging in business. You've got,
Yes. And I think, and it's reasonable for people to be making these mistakes, particularly when they've stepped out of any type of employment, because in employment, you are paid for
the time.
productivity hours,
Yeah,
and somebody else is taking care of all the other stuff.
that's right. Yeah.
So, we've got to switch off the employment brain
Yeah,
when
which
you
is why
become a business owner.
charging dollars for time just does not work in that scenario because, if you're only working 10, 12, 20 hours a week of actual revenue generating time or less, you've got to have a really high hourly rate if that's going to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
the moral of the story is charge in terms of the value of the result you get your clients. And however you choose to determine that value is up to you, but there is also a perception, that you need to build with the client about that value also, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's there's no clear-cut formula for calculating pricing.
No.
But there are certainly parameters which you can use to guide you to the right price.
Yeah. And if you want our eyeballs on your pricing strategy, come along to our workshop in May, where we will be providing live coaching for you to, get all, any questions you have. Sam and I will try to guide you to get the right pricing strategy for your business.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I am too.
All right, everyone. Well, I hope that was valuable. Any closing comments, Sam?
No, I don't think I do today.
I think we covered it all. We got the gold out just right at the end there.
Yeah. Better late than never.
That's right. All right, everyone. Well, we look forward to seeing you in the next episode, which is going to be super exciting, all about AI systems for efficiency. So stay tuned. This is going to be a big one. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
You've got the strategies. Now let's build the systems. Whether you're joining our workshops or transforming at our Bali Business Retreat, we're here to help you scale without the burnout. Visit thrivingbusinesspodcast.com to join our community. Until next time, keep building a business that thrives.